After the massive success of Crichton's first Jurassic Park, Spielberg's film adaptation would soon follow, and quickly become the highest-grossing movie of all time. Audiences everywhere would be thrilled at the sight of seeing real living dinosaurs walk, run, and hunt on the big screen, with absolute realism that had previously never been achieved before. The success of Dr. Crichton's story soon led to the development of his first and only sequel, The Lost World. This second book, which was published in 1995, received similar acclaim, and it would of course get an adaptation by Spielberg as well. However, where Jurassic Park followed the basic storyline and many of the same characters from its novel counterpart, the second film would take on a largely original story that had only brief moments of similarity to the book in which it was based. Because of this, several unique and thrilling scenes were left within the text of the author's work to stay and await any further adaptation through whatever odd sequel that would choose to revisit the series' roots. One of these scenes involved the pair of Carnotaurus that resided on Site B. Their hunting techniques and genetic gifts are the basis of a creepy scenario that takes place near the end of the novel, in which Dr. Thorne makes his way outside of the laboratory where our protagonists have taken shelter. He's left to search for any gasoline that he can find within the village of this island. They're going to need at least a gallon or two if they want to refuel their cars and head towards the helicopter. During this nighttime search, we're treated to a very eerie revelation. Thorne walked into the shed that sat near the empty drums of gas that he just examined. He knew InGen would have to have a supply of a couple months' worth of gasoline for the support vehicles if they wanted to do anything productive on the island, but he couldn't seem to find any for their cars. He'd figured that this shed would have some more drums for him to check, and it in fact did, but just as the ones outside, they too were empty. Feeling defeated, the doctor began to move towards the entrance to the shed to alert the others of their situation. But the man paused after he heard the unmistakable sound of heavy breathing. Something was wrong. Back at the lab, Richard Levine looked out into the distance with only the moon to light his view. He'd been waiting for Thorne for nearly a minute and was beginning to grow worrisome of what may be out in the dark waiting for them all. He listened to the soft sounds of the night and noticed that he could still hear the snarls of the angry raptors that had chosen to stay away from the entrance of the laboratory. Why had the raptors not followed them? This question calmed Levine. He loved working things out. Maybe they chose to stay away due to some atavistic fear of their birthplace. They remembered the cages and didn't want to be captured again, but that didn't make much sense for a velociraptor. No, the most likely reason was probably the simplest. They didn't come here because this was some other animal's territory. Something had scent marked and defended this area that made the raptors reluctant to enter. Levine stopped for a second to remember that even the tyrannosaur that passed by earlier did so without stopping. He didn't like that. He remained waiting at the window, patiently waiting for the doctor's return. At the entrance of the shed, Thorne listened silently. He heard the snorting exhalations of something similar to a quiet horse. This animal was waiting. He looked hard into the night but could see nothing. Only the soft sound of breathing was able to alert him that he was not alone. It sounded like a faint breeze, but there was no breeze, and the trees weren't moving. Or were they? Thorne stared hard out of the entrance and saw the patterns of nearby bushes move ever so slightly before stabilizing again. Thorne thought that maybe it wasn't the bushes, but rather the chain link fence that sat behind them. Maybe an animal was pushing up against the fence, causing the bushes to move. Then suddenly, the lights from the lab came on, and for just a split second, Thorne saw them. There, just a few meters away, stood two 7-foot-tall dinosaurs. A pattern of bush leaves covered their legs before their upper torsos imitated the chain link fence they were in front of. And then, just as suddenly as they'd come into view, they vanished. Thorne couldn't believe such astonishing mimicry. If he hadn't have seen their outlines, he wouldn't even know that they were there. He began to back slowly into the shed. Meanwhile, Levine stared out at the dinosaurs that he'd just seen camouflage into the night. They'd been discovered as soon as Sarah flicked on the lights, yet had disappeared again so smoothly and unbelievably that it disturbed him. "What is it?" Sarah asked. But Levine just told her to look. She stared into the darkness for a moment but couldn't see what he was talking about. She didn't understand. Levine told her to turn out the lights again and look. When she did, she hurried back to the window to see what he was going on about. This time, she saw them instantly. "No shit," she whispered to Levine. "What are they?" Levine attempted to describe the camouflaging ability as something genetic that a chameleon may possess, but no chameleon he'd ever seen was able to produce such complex patterns. She grew impatient and asked again, "What are they?" Levine stopped to say that he presumed them to be Carnotaurus sastrae from Patagonia, 3 meters in height with bulldog-like snouts, and horns above their eyes, carnivorous, and currently hunting. Quickly, Sarah asked where Thorne was, to which Levine couldn't answer. She asked what they planned on doing, which startled the paleontologist. He had no idea what they should do, but he damn well knew that he didn't want to go out there. Sarah told Levine to go to the lights and turn them back on. And so he did. She called for him to shut them off instantly, and he did. Now on, now off. This caused the Carnos to become bothered. There was a refractory period within their complex invisibility. They didn't like their skins being changed so often. Sarah quickly grabbed hold of several flashlights and told Levine to follow her. Back in the shed, Thorne stared out in the darkness, desperately looking for the animals. Someone had been flicking the lights on and off at the lab, causing the Carnos to get anxious and move forward. Soon, he saw them. They looked like small tyrannosaurs, and they were advancing on his position. They began snorting and sniffing before one of them decided to lower its head and walk into the entrance. Thorne held his breath. He had no idea what to do. And then, bright beams of light hit the animals' bodies from outside. The Carnos turned and saw two humans casting rays of light at them from the other building. The animals snapped and growled at Sarah and Levine, but did so half-heartedly. They didn't like being ousted. After a short while, they growled a final time and gave up, leaving the territory and moving off into the distance. Sarah called out to Thorne over the jungle, telling him that he'd better get back there before they come back. And just like that, a very grateful Dr. Thorne moved himself quickly towards the lights and away from the gas shed. This particular scene in The Lost World would not become featured in its film version. It would, however, make a brief appearance in Jurassic World's Indominus camouflaging reveal. As a fan of both the films and books, I can say that this is one of the best suspense scenes that Crichton ever wrote. The way it plays out in about 4 or 5 pages is relatively short, but it's so original and intelligent that I honestly find it to be one of my favorite parts of the book. It's never directly revealed how or why the Carnotaurus are able to camouflage, but Crichton's Jurassic Park contains several animals that possessed chromatophores, which ultimately gave them this ability. Ornitholestes, these Carnos, and of course the juvenile wild velociraptor in the first book, all have the unique ability to change their skin's patterns in order to blend in with their surroundings. This suggests that the feature is a genetic alteration and isn't something to be attributed to the actual prehistoric animal in which these creatures were based. I say this because the lone raptor makes the chromatophore's presence unique when compared with all of the other raptors that have been shown in the novels. Personally, I find this attribute to be really impressive, and I think it could make for a great scene in a movie if they ever choose to adapt it wholly. Now before I go, I want to thank my game wardens, as well as my InGen executives. I'd also like to take the time to thank my park workers and engine hunters as well. Garrett Alderfer, it means the world to me that you guys have chosen to support the channel this way, and it's super awesome to have you all help me build this thing up and make it bigger and better than ever before. Now, I'd like to thank you all for watching this video, and hope that you all enjoyed today's content. If you feel like I deserve it, I'd appreciate the like and hope that you'll consider subscribing if you're interested in hearing from me again. I'll see you all in the next video, guys, and as always, take it easy.